who wasn't here when I first announced it, my name is Peter. I am your quiz master for the night. This is Berkshire Museum Family Trivia. Now, this is a self-scoring trivia, so if you want to keep score, make sure to grab a pen and a paper. Now, there are 10 questions on two different topics. Tonight's topic is fossils and food. So we are going to get underway with our first question. Here we go. Alrighty. Yeah, I'm sure plenty of you guys recognize this skull here. This is the very famous Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now, there's been a lot of debate amongst paleontologists about T-Rexes with regards to how they eat and how fast they can move. Some early estimates thought that these guys were incredibly slow and were just scavengers. And then as we found more of the fossil, they were like, well, there's very large leg muscles attached to these leg bones. So it's possible they could run incredibly fast. And this debate has gone back and forth. Now, with the help of computer modeling, they have built out Tyrannosaurus rexes. They have attached muscles to the bones. They have applied the strength of the bones into the math behind those bones. So the question becomes, how fast could a T-Rex run? And this is, how fast do current paleontologists think T-Rexes could run? So there's historic guesses. This is as of modeling that took place in, I believe, 2016. How fast does a T-Rex run? Based off of the computer models made about 4 years ago. This model was made and both to figure out how fast T-Rexes could run, but also to answer an important question. Could a T-Rex actually eat Jeff Goldblum if he is on the back of a Jeep? So that is another important question that this 3D model of a T-Rex allowed us to answer. All right, another couple seconds to get in your guesses. All righty. We're going to wrap up our guessing on question one right there. So most of you guys guessed 17 miles per hour, but few split between thinking it was a little bit faster. The correct answer is 17 miles per hour. This is the current estimate for about as fast as a T-Rex could move. So if you say were injured in a dinosaur park accident and had to be transported on the back of a Jeep, it is likely you will be able to outdrive a T-Rex. So this is taking into account the strength of bones, strength of muscles. Paleontologists now believe 17 is about the max for a T-Rex's running speed. Alrighty. Next question for you guys is on these dinosaurs here. This is an ankylosaurus. They have a bony plate-like shell on their back. They have a large club tail. And they actually existed around the same time as a T-Rex. Roughly, hold on, let me check my notes so I don't tell you the wrong millions of years. Around 68 to 66 million years ago, you would be able to find both T-Rexes and ankylosauruses. Now, the world looked a lot different then. The continents have moved around a bit. However, ankylosaurus fossils have only been found in a single hemisphere. So my question for you guys, which hemisphere have Ankylosauridae fossils been found? Is it the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere? So the northern hemisphere would be North America, Europe, most of Asia. Southern hemisphere would be South America, sub-Saharan Africa, and Australia. So which half of the world, if you were looking to dig up some Ankylosaurus fossils, do you think you would find them? All right, we're going to have another few seconds to get those answers in. All righty. That was pretty evenly split between northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. If you were to search specifically for Ankylosauridae fossils, you would be looking in the northern hemisphere. To date, no Ankylosaurus fossils have been found below the equator. So, in fact, we have found some incredibly well preserved Ankylosaurus fossils up in the Canadian Arctic. So, they are found typically far to the north of our planet. Alrighty, our next question. I always include a Stegosaurus question when I can, as you know, the Berkshire Museum has our beloved Wally. Now, although you guys might like to imagine a Stegosaurus fighting a T-Rex, these guys actually lived much further back in history. These guys could be found about 150 million years ago. Now, just like the Ankylosaurus, they have armor plating on their back. They have large spikes on their tails called thagomizers they would use for defense. And they were a pretty large dinosaur. They would, at their largest, would be about 30 feet long. So these guys were enormous. So given how large they are, I would like to know. Stop sharing results on that. How heavy were Stegosauruses? Were they around 1,500 pounds, 2,700 pounds, 5,200 pounds, or 6,800 pounds? If you were to get a Stegosaurus on a scale, how much would these guys weigh? Now, I can tell you that at the Berkshire Museum, our fiberglass and steel Stegosaurus is much, much lighter than his real life counterparts. Uh, so we were able to hoist him onto a flatbed and move him around. But if he was in the wild, he would weigh significantly more. All right, guys, a few more seconds on your answers there. How much would this 30-foot long, roughly 8 to 9, I believe, feet tall, they have a hump in the middle, lizard weigh? All righty, we're going to end polling there. Most of you guys guessed 5,200 pounds, which is a really good guess. However, a full-grown Stegosaurus would actually weigh 6,800 pounds. These guys were enormous and would need to eat a lot of food in order to get up to that weight. All righty. Moving on to question 3. This one, they're a little tough to see. So as you can see, I crudely colored one in for you. These are fossilized footprints. Now, here in Massachusetts, the state fossil is actually the fossilized footprint. And millions of years ago, the Connecticut River Valley was it was a rift valley and along either a great sea or inland lake. And the conditions were perfect for preserving footprints. And you can find fossilized footprints up and down the Connecticut River Valley. So as you can see, we've got these 3-toed footprints right here in our fossil. And while this dinosaur was walking around, how many feet was he walking on? So were they walking on all fours, or are they walking on 2 legs? If you had to guess, looking at those 3-toed feet, And I'm going to go back for you guys so you can keep looking at them while you work it out. These three-toed feet here, were they walking on all fours or were they walking on two legs? Now, fossilized footprints are actually a bit weird in how they're made. It's not always the surface detail that's preserved. It's when they press down and they compress the soil underneath them, it sort of creates a mold beneath the top layer. And then if something washes over that and then eventually it solidifies, you get these fossilized footprints. So they are a little bit strange in how they're made. All right, we're going to wrap up voting there. You guys knocked it out of the park. These are two-legged dinosaurs. They a lot of like oviraptors and things like that. So the egg-stealing dinosaurs walking on two legs and moving fairly quickly. So those three-toed feet you saw were from two-legged dinosaurs running around on the banks of an ancient sea. Alrighty. Our next question. This here is a much younger fossil. This is a stingray that was preserved around 33 million years ago. Now, depending on conditions, if conditions are perfect, it takes about 10,000 years for organic matter to be transformed into a fossil. It can take much longer if the conditions aren't right. So, which is why we still find bones and fur from animals that lived much longer than 10,000 years ago. Under perfect condition, 10,000 is about the minimum amount of time you need to make a fossil. Now, this is much younger, but I want to know, how old is the oldest fossil that's ever been discovered? So if it takes about 10,000 years to make a fossil, how old is the oldest fossil we've found? Now, the planet Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, to give you guys a point of reference. So what is the oldest fossilized example of life that we have found? And this is a confirmed fossil. There are some evidence a little bit older, but they are not confirmed. All right, about 10 more seconds on those guesses there, guys. All right. You guys had a pretty wide spread there. Most of you landed on 3.4 billion years old. And you guys are correct. The oldest fossil found was about 3.46 billion years old. It is a microfossil. It is actually not a animal or anything like that. It is actually basically a fossil of a slime mold that made I believe it's called a stromalite or stomolite or something like that, which is just a little mound of organic matter that was then compressed and mineralized. And it is the oldest confirmed fossil ever found. There are two older examples. However, they are a bit hazy and might not be full fossils, but there are some older examples of life on Earth. All right, I know I said that there were 10 questions, but I actually do have a bonus question for you guys. Where was the oldest fossil discovered? So this 3.4 billion year old fossil, do you think it was found in Greenland, Chile, Mongolia, or Australia? This is our bonus question of the night. If you had to guess where the oldest fossil in the world was discovered, where do you think it would be? I'm giving you guys no hints on this one. All right, we're going to wrap up voting there. Most of you guys guessed Mongolia. Mongolia is a great guess. There have been a ton of fossils found in Mongolia. However, Australia was the location of the oldest fossil in the world. There is a slightly older fossil that was discovered in Greenland. However, they have not confirmed whether it is actually organic matter that was fossilized. And there is an even older example of the potential for life on Earth in some sort of abscesses in rocks that was also found in Australia. So Australia is the answer for the oldest confirmed fossil that we have found so far on our planet. Now we are going to switch over to the next half of our trivia. So the next 5 questions are all going to be on food. So there was 6 questions in round 1 because I tossed a bonus in. So the next 5 questions are all on food. This is our butter churn. A butter churn is a very useful tool if you need to turn cream into butter in large quantities. By agitating the cream, you separate the fats out and congeal them into butter. Now, if this is even something you can do at home with very easily with a mixer, sometimes if you overmix heavy whipping cream instead of making whipped cream, you accidentally make butter. Now, my question is as a byproduct of churning butter, what is the byproduct of churning butter? Do you get buttermilk, whey, sour cream, or curds when you churn butter? What is the liquid that is left over? You've solidified all of your fats. What do you have left behind? All right, another few seconds on that. All right, last chance to get your guesses in. Now, most of you said buttermilk, and you guys are correct. Whey is a byproduct of cheese making, not buttermilk, not butter making. So when you separate the fats out of butter, you are left with buttermilk as the remainder. Fun fact about me: I used to work at Plymouth Plantation, and I would put on a voice and sound like this, and people would often ask me about butter making. I would have to tell them we're 1624 and don't have any cows yet that can make milk. And they were very disappointed that I did not have butter churning for them. And I would then tell them that as a pilgrim, I am most disappointed with the lack of butter as well. All right. Our next question is on another food that Pilgrim Pete would have to eat on occasion. Hardtack. Hardtack is a very, very, very hard, dense bread made from flour, salt, and water. It is, as long as it doesn't get wet, basically indestructible, will last for decades, and was a staple of food from, you know, I would have eaten it as a pilgrim in the 17th century. And the and they were eating it all the way through the Civil War and even into World War One. It is just a very, very dense, nutrient-rich food caloric-rich food that just lasts a really long time. So my question for you guys is how many times, as a at minimum, is hardtack usually baked? So when you're making your hardtack, you want to pull all the moisture out of it. That's what gives it that incredibly long lifespan. So how many times do you have to bake it usually to draw out that moisture so you have this long lasting biscuit? Now, I will tell you that this is the basic version. If you were going on a sea voyage, you would bake it double the amount. So the normal baking for hardtack is doubled for a sea voyage. And if I were a pilgrim, I would tell you that the hardtack is basically inedible. You can't eat it. You'll break your teeth if you try to bite it. So the best you do is you soak it in some water, or better yet, maybe some spirits, and then that will make it a more palatable meal for yourself. Um, all right, we're gonna wrap up voting in just another few seconds, so get your guesses in. All righty. So most of you guys guessed 3 times, which is a pretty good guess. That's actually splitting the difference between normal baking and sea voyage baking. Typically, baked twice is the usual guideline. However, if you live in a more moist area, or if you're going overseas, you bake it as many times as you need to. But 2 is the recommended amount of baking times for your hardtack recipe, which again is just flour, salt, water. They have basically no flavor, and they will break your teeth if you don't soak them in something first. So my next question, this here we see a very lovely plated burrito. Now, my question is in regards to the definition of a sandwich. There actually isn't a great definition of what is and is not a sandwich in the world. And this has resulted in different places coming up with different definitions. Now, the state of New York has a pretty broad definition and includes hot dogs in its definition of a sandwich. My question for you guys is a burrito considered a sandwich in the state of Massachusetts? There was a court case which this was decided in 2006. So in 2006, the state of Massachusetts had to determine legally, is a burrito a sandwich? And which way did the state fall? And I will give you a little detail on the court case while we're waiting. So it came about as a sandwich shop in a shopping center had an agreement that said it was the only sandwich shop allowed in that shopping center. The owner of the shopping center then allowed a burrito place to open up, and thus the sandwich shop sued uh, the owner of the strip mall, saying, "We had an agreement. I'm the only sandwich place." It was taken to court, thus resulting in the state of Massachusetts needing to define whether or not a burrito is a sandwich. And this is perfectly split 50-50, so we're going to call it there. You guys, we're very split on that. Some think yes, some think no. I will tell you right now, the state of Massachusetts determined that no, a burrito is legally not a sandwich. It's very similar to a wrap, but legally not a sandwich in the eyes of the government of Massachusetts. Alrighty. While I was looking up, wow, 53 to 53. The polling can get odd. That is a 50-50 split, but apparently our math goes to 106%. That is strange. Uh, Our next question. While I was looking up weird food facts about Massachusetts, you run into the normal stuff. You find out that there is a state berry, which you expect, the cranberry. There is a state dessert, the Boston cream pie, which makes sense, and the ensuing Boston cream pie donut as the state donut. Um, there's also the state cookie of the chocolate chip cookie. Now, I found out that there's actually a state muffin for the state of Massachusetts. So, very quick, simple question for you guys. What is the state muffin of the state of Massachusetts? What do you think is the state muffin for Massachusetts? Is it a cranberry muffin, a corn muffin, a chocolate chip muffin, or a blueberry muffin? If you had to go to a bakery and pick a muffin that defines the state of Massachusetts, what would that muffin be? All right, we'll give you guys just another 10 seconds or so on your responses. All righty, and we'll wrap it up there. Corn just eked out ahead of the others. I'm just doing quick head math. The polling actually adds up to 100 on this one, so I don't know what was up with the last one. So corn just out ahead of cranberry. Cranberry is a good guess. However, all of those who guessed corn are correct. Corn is the official state muffin of Massachusetts. Relating back to the early colonial days and the colonists learning from the Native Americans how to plant and grow corn, and that becoming the staple grain of early colonial Massachusetts. Which then allows me to very smoothly segue into my next section. So this one is about the Columbian Exchange, which caused the large movement of goods and people between Europe and the Americas, introducing new species into the Americas, but also introducing new species into Europe. Now we're going to focus on some native and non-native plants here. Now, corn is native to the Americas prior to Columbus's arrival. Europeans had never seen an ear of corn. And wheat was native to the old world. So you would not see any wheat in the Americas. Now, my question for you guys is, which of these foods was not native to the Americas? Which of these foods was brought over like wheat? Was it peppers, potatoes, papaws, or pears? I went very alliterative for this one. It's very fun. So there was a number of non-native things brought over to the Americas. Things like cows, chickens, horses were all brought over by Europeans. There were a number of foods that were brought over as well, including wheat. And it really reshaped the ecology of the region. In fact, it's believed that earthworms were not native to New England. There were earthworms in the Americas, but the glacial shelf that used to cover New England had killed all the earthworms here, and they were essentially brought over by Europeans. So there's a theory that earthworms are actually a non-native species in New England. All right, just a few more seconds on those answers. Alrighty, guys. Most of you, well, the plurality of you guys guessed potatoes, which is a good guess. They are not native to New England. They are native to South America, though. They are actually from Peru. Pears are the species of food that was not native to the Americas. They were brought over by European colonists, along with pretty much most fruit-bearing trees that we see here in New England. Apples, plums, peaches, those all were brought over. So potatoes are native to the Americas. Peppers, native to the Americas. Pawpaw is a weird fruit that grows in the Appalachian Mountains. That's native to the Americas. It was pears that were brought over. Alrighty, guys. That was our final question of the night. Thank you guys so much for participating. I do have a couple announcements I need to get through as we finish up for the night. This Friday, June 6th, we have our Art of the Hills digital gallery opening. You can see the event on our Facebook page and sign up there. It is a really cool walkthrough with the heads of the Art of the Hills, speaking of the different pieces, in an awesome digital gallery made by my friend Will. It looks amazing. It promises to be a really cool experience. So I encourage you guys to check that out. Next week's, not next week's, 2 weeks from now, we're going to have another trivia. It is Lizards and the Solar System.